is immutable. The money is
But the Genesis
decentralized.
locked to the end of the mempool. We are decoding Bitcoin's signal in the noise. Privacy, self-custody, censorship resistance. Welcome to the revolution.
This is OnChain Revolution.
Welcome back to OnChain Revolution. My name is Yagobi, and I am your host of the show. We got a lot to get into today, guys. Bitcoin crashed down to 60,000 last night, or yesterday evening, I should say, and quickly rallied back, right? But is this a dead cat bounce, or is it a real recovery? That is the question. And I do want to welcome back my TikTok audience as well. This is day 3 of streaming live on TikTok. And thank you to the 2 people that sent me diamonds yesterday. I really appreciate that. And I appreciate you guys hanging with me. And I'm going to try to get to your comments better today. I'm going to take my time to get to the TikTok comments, to the abstract comments if I can. Let me pull that up actually right now before we get started here so I can see who's chatting in there, because I do see people chatting in the abstract chat. But I do want to welcome the YouTube X crowds as well. On the YouTube side, smash that like if you like my content, and also subscribe to the channel. And then on the X, let's share the space. Let's get as many people in here as possible. But it is Friday. And like I said, we got a lot to talk about. Bitcoin pretty much did what I said it was going to do. I didn't think it was going to happen that quickly, but as soon as it started taking off, it looked like it was getting closer and closer to the 200 moving average, right? So that's the question. This is the question of the day. People are wondering, you know, the rebound off of 60, it bounced pretty quickly off of 60,000. A lot of people bought Bitcoin for pretty cheap, and it didn't stay there very quick, right? But is this a dead cat bounce or a real recovery? And if you've been watching me, you probably can guess what I'm going to say. I think this is a dead cat bounce. And I'm going to use some data, and I'm going to stick with the data from the moving average indicator chart that I've been using on the Bitcoin weekly chart to kind of back that up, right? But before we get into that, of course, we're going to hit on the market pulse to see what the market thinks about what happened yesterday, because all of the financial markets are kind of moving in the same way, right? And then we'll hit on some news after that. We'll get into China, once again, back at it, right? Banning crypto and becoming more strict about it. And it seems like they tend to do this whenever we're in the bear market, right? So we'll get into that and what that all entails. Tether mints another 1 billion USDT on Tron. And then we will also hit on, there's not a bunch of news today. We'll hit on some things. Michael Saylor possibly getting liquidated, being a bull catalyst. It seems like there's a writer from Cointelegraph that has this opinion. I think it's a horrible take, but we'll dive into that and see maybe where she's coming from. And then we'll round it off with a little bit of Bitcoin news, not too much, right? And maybe check out some tokens as well to see how they're doing individually, as everything seems to be bouncing back. But of course, you know, drop your comments in the chat and I will get to them accordingly. And I am going to do my best to be able to check the chat for abstract, TikTok, as well, of course, YouTube and X. But let's get into the market pulse and see what is happening. Let's check out Bitcoin's hour chart, but we're not going to get into Bitcoin specifically. We're going to get into all the markets, and then I'll get into the price action a little bit later here. But let me share my screen, which I didn't realize I wasn't sharing my screen yesterday for a little bit during price action. And of course, if you guys could help me out and you're not seeing the screen and I'm talking about price action, just drop a comment in the chat and I'll take care of that for sure. But all right, let's take a look here. So one of the major news headlines was the jobs report has been postponed. And we kind of already knew that, right? I talked about that, I want to say on Wednesday, that it was most likely that this report was going to be postponed because of the partial government shutdown. So without the jobs report, we did get the initial claims yesterday, which was bad. The private sector ADP on Wednesday was bad. So maybe, you know, some of that all played into yesterday, you know, just everything crashing together, right? But today, the bounce has started, right? And it started late last night, actually, for crypto and I believe precious metals. But you can see here, the S&P is up 1.3%. NASDAQ is up 1.3% as well. The Dow Jones is up 1.87%. And this is probably a good sign that the VIX is actually down 13%, because that means that volatility is calming down a bit, right? The DXY is pulled back a little bit, 0.33%, and you have the Russell 2000 up 3%, right? I talk a lot about the Russell because I feel like the Russell has shown strength whenever the overall market has pulled back a little bit, right? And the Russell, for those of you that don't know, for TradFi, it's more of the risk on index fund, right? You're talking about lower market caps that maybe not everybody knows too much about, or just more of a risk on index fund, like I mentioned. And it's shown some strength whenever the S&P was pulling back and the stock market was pulling back a little bit. And now it's showing strength as everything is pulling up. So is that a sign for possibly we all going into a risk on environment in the near future? We'll see. The Mag 7 is up 1.9%. You see the giants here. NVIDIA is up almost 7%. So huge day for NVIDIA. And then you got Google pulling back about 3% there, and then Apple up one point, Tesla up about 3 points, and Netflix up almost 1 point. You got the futures up as well. And then you go into Bitcoin up 9.7%, which makes a lot of sense because you got to remember yesterday, when it hit 60,000, we're talking about a $10,000 red daily candle that was forming. Right. And so a huge jump down for Bitcoin yesterday. So this pull up is not too shocking. 10% is huge for Bitcoin for sure. We're sitting at 69,000 for Bitcoin. Then you got Ethereum pulling up 9.3%. So right around the same as Bitcoin. And then we go into gold up 3.5%, which is huge for gold as the largest market cap of all assets. And then we hit silver and it's up 7 points here. So silver is back to $76. So for those precious metal bugs, it looks like the bounce back is starting as well for you guys. But the entire financial market, all the markets are bouncing back today, right? So let's see kind of some of this I guess effects of yesterday's dump to 60,000 for Bitcoin. You did see, I believe, some liquidations. Aave had $450 million liquidated over the last week. So it's kind of been built up, right, in the crypto space. But that represents only, 0.9% of all their deposits. So not too bad there. And then you can also see here, this is a headline that kind of supports a little bit of my theory that we are in this dead cat bounce. And that is compared with prior cycles, Bitcoin has not yet reached typical capitulation depths of 70 to 80%. And if you look here, you can see in 2022, it got to about 77%. In 2017 or 2018 bear market, 2019, 2018, it got to 81% drawdown. And then the 2015 bear market got to about 81% as well. So all these three previous drawdowns are comparable, but the current drawdown that we're at right now is barely over 40%, right? So we're seeing, we could have some more room. I think we do have more room to the downside, and we'll get into that here as I pull up some data that backs why I think we are actually, in fact, not in a real recovery necessarily, but more of a dead cat bounce, right? So do I think in the near term we're going to have, continually up? Sure. In fact, I wouldn't be shocked if Bitcoin gets back to 75 on the most extreme, I guess, price action, maybe 78,000 next week. But that's a typical 25 to 30% dead cat bounce recovery, right? And I'm going to pull up this Bitcoin weekly chart, which let me share my screen again here. And you can see why I feel like this is a dead cat bounce, right? So going back to this 2014-15 bear market right here, and the first time that Bitcoin on the weekly chart the weekly candle hit that 200 moving average, right? You saw that very next week, a strong weekly green candle, right? And you can see it went from the previous week of Bitcoin hitting $163 to that next week where Bitcoin got back up to 274, right? And if you look at the drawback up, this is more significant. I think we're looking at maybe like a 40 to 50% drawback up or something close to that. But you got to remember that's when Bitcoin was $163. So it's a lot easier to have a higher percentage drop. But then you go further down here. And another thing to pay attention to too is after you did have this drop, right, this dead cat bounce, you went sideways. It pulled back closer to the 200 moving average. That's why I think this is a dead cat bounce. And it goes sideways here, right? And eventually it pulls up and then we just keep ranging sideways until it decides, okay, we're going to retake the 50-day moving average, and then we're going to retake the 100-day moving average. And then now we're out and we don't even revisit any of those moving averages until after the next bull market, right? And so fast forward here to the 2018 bear market where we got close. So it took the first time it took, I think, 4 weeks. This time it took in 2018, it took 5 weeks to get to the 200 moving average. And then that as soon as we did that, the next weekly candle was another dead cat bounce, right? And this one was closer to the 30-40% bounce. But again, after that week, the weekly candles showed sideways for about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 weeks sideways and a little bit of up before we recaptured the 50-day moving average. And again, same story as the previous cycle. Once we capture the 50-day, we're going for the 100-day moving average. And after that, we don't revisit any of those except for in this quick anomaly. I always bring up the COVID anomaly. Once in 100-year pandemic, right? So really quickly we zoomed through those and then we came back up, right? But we didn't revisit or break down below the 50-day, the 100-day, or the 200-day until the next bull market was over, right? So we fast forward to where we are today, right? And you see that I will count that we're pretty much in that range where we're touching the 200 moving average, right? I didn't think it was going to happen so quickly, but if we count this, then it took 2 weeks for us to reach that, right? And the way things are looking, right, for this price action recovery, it looks like, we could start that upward trajectory for this next candle on Sunday, right? This next week's candle on Sunday. And let's say that we recover that 30%, right? That comes out to be about 78,000, right? And if you say 25%, because an average dead cat bounce is between 25 and 30% of a recovery that can last anywhere between 3 and 7 days to some weeks, or in rare cases, maybe it can go for a month or longer, right? But let's say that we do recover to that 78,000, right? Best case scenario for this dead cat bounce. And we're there by the end of next week. Then we kind of go sideways and we range for the next, 5 to 8 to 10 weeks, depending on when, the macro environment gets better and also when the sentiment gets better for our space and Bitcoin starts to try to go towards that 50-day moving average to recapture that, right? But we still will have a lot of sideways ranging back and forth until then, right? So 8 weeks, 11 weeks, 15 weeks. Why does that matter, right? Why does that even matter? Let me put this up actually right here. So because actually I think it's more of an opportunity to take a look at, where are the opportunities in the rest of the market? What is cheap right now? Because I think Bitcoin is going to revisit the 200 moving average. Right? We get to 78,000 next week. Let's just say best case scenario. Then the week after we range back to 68 or 70,000. Then we range back up to like 72 that next week. Then we range back down. I mean, if you look at every scenario that after we reach the 200 moving average, we did go sideways for at least, I want to say 8 to 10 weeks. And it was like, short term, great. And then pulled back to the moving average or getting closer to it, right? Pull back up, great. Getting back to the moving average. So my point with this is I think we're going to have multiple opportunities to get close back to that moving average of $60,000 again, right? And then, one thing we got to look for is the recapturing of the 50-day moving average, right? So whether it takes 8 weeks, 10 weeks, 13 weeks, once we start to head towards that 50-day moving average, we recapture that, we finish a weekly candle above it, and then we say, okay, this is when it starts, right? This is when it starts. You start paying attention. And a lot of times people aren't paying attention to that, right? I mean, if you go back to even before things got aggressive this cycle, right? You go back to January and February of 2023, right? And you can see that we recaptured. So we fell below this last time, below the 200 pretty aggressively, but we recaptured the 50-day and the 100-day in about, I would say, October-ish of 2023. So we were above all the moving averages at that point. And you can see, even though we didn't have like this crazy, like, alt season or anything like that for this cycle, Bitcoin itself was strong the entire time after it captured all the moving averages. We revisited it, the 50-day in October of 2024, just revisited it, but bounced off of that, right? Then we revisited it again in March of 2025, bounced off of it. And then this time, when we revisited the 50-day moving average in November of 2025, we broke down below it. Okay, so that should have been our indicator right there that we've kicked off the bear market. And since then, we've been in this bear market, and then we lost the 100-day, and then now we're at the point where we revisited the 200 moving average, which we haven't done in a very, very long time, right? But again, sideways, right? So dead cat bounce for next week, possibly. Maybe it takes 2 weeks, right? And then revisiting, and then bounce up, revisiting, bounce up, revisiting. So that is where I'm at with kind of my dead cat bounce theory. And, Bitcoin looks great right now at $69,300, right? I mean, this was definitely a strong bounce back up, but again, just be careful. Now, do I think this is an opportunity for people that are good at scalp trading or even swing trading? Absolutely. I was on the phone with somebody yesterday whenever Bitcoin hit 60,000, and he was just like, "Oh, I miss my price, my reentry," and I was just like, "It'll come again. It'll come again." And he was like, "No, it's not." I mean, he was right for that next, it was late yesterday. So, from that point on, it went from 60,000 to where we are right now, 69,000. But take a look at this. What is up? I got some chats in the comments in the chat here. I got Lin 123 says, "Do you think Bitcoin will drop again?" Yeah, hopefully you were just watching my breakdown there. But yeah, I do think it will. But I think it goes up first. I think we probably see, this continuation of rising up, maybe having a strong green candle for next week, but a dead cat bounce, right? So it bounces back down below. And then we got Stan that says, "Is the channel continuing the 26 bullish pump prediction? Thanks." Yeah, so I think it's going to be more of a later in the year, right? If you look at when things started to pick back up after losing the 200 moving average, it did take some time. You had to get back again. You had to win back the 50-day moving average and the 100-day moving average, and then you start to kind of talk business here. Now, one thing is that like this cycle has been very, very different, as we know, with no alt season, no euphoria, a lot of apathy. As Bitcoin went to 126,000, a ton of apathy with that, right? And let me make sure the chat is coming in here okay, cool. for this bull market year. And so, could it be a much shorter bear market? Absolutely, it could be, right? It could be because, there's a lot of situations right now, global sentiment of the United States being kind of trying to take the lead for digital assets in general and not having the best, reputation at the moment. So that could affect it as well. But yeah, so let's take a look at the liquidation heat map, right? By the way, it is the weekend, Super Bowl weekend as well, so, I know a lot of this stuff can be stressful. So make sure that you guys are checking on your mental health first and foremost, but I'm going to be enjoying the Super Bowl. I got the Seahawks winning, and curious of who you guys got winning in that game as well. But going back to this liquidation heat map here, you can see this is the past 24 hours where it's yellow is the most concentrated liquidity, right? So it's no wonder that they're really letting Bitcoin hang around the $69,000 mark, because the strongest concentration is sitting at 68.9. So right at 69,000, right? So people, the shorts are getting liquidated in this area, right? And you go up above here, it gets a little bit, lighter, right? The darker it gets, the less liquidity is available right there, right? And it goes and it pretty much shuts off right at that $72,000 mark. So, be aware of, if you're taking leverage, that these are going to be grab spots, right? So, going back to kind of where Bitcoin is right now, no shocker, right? This is kind of like this local, possibly this local top. I'm sure a lot of shorts got liquidated in this area, but then where does it continue before they retrace a little bit? And heading into the weekend, a lot of times Fridays start off strong, and by the end of the day, there's a reversal of Bitcoin and the crypto market, right? And then another thing to keep your eye on is the USDT dominance. So we did see some pullback yesterday, right? I'm going to pull up the daily chart for this one. So dominance for the first time in about 3 days, right, has gone to the downside, right? And it looks pretty aggressive, right? So is there going to be a continuation of this? That's something to pay attention to as well, right? So people are buying Bitcoin and Ethereum and buying cryptocurrency, and they're coming out of stablecoin. That is what happened, at least for today, right? This kind of rebound, this dead cat bounce that we're at right now. Now, if we have a continuation of this, then we'll see if we do eventually get Bitcoin back up to the $78,000 mark. But this is a chart that I use to help me say, okay, things are aligned here. For example, there could be this dead cat bounce, and if we get another strong red candle tomorrow, and it leads into Sunday, and and then we get like a downtrend start happening here with the USDT dominance, then we can say, okay, we could get to this, 70,000, 75,000, 78,000 best case scenario for Bitcoin next week, and then we'll see what happens, right? Like I said, I'm open-minded I'm not stubborn on my thesis. I'm willing to change that if there's something significant that makes me want to do that, right? So keep paying attention to the USDT dominance and seeing if it's continually going down. And then also watch the liquidation levels here with the heat map. And you can find this at coinglass.com. And it's really, really easy to find. It's actually on the left side here. You can see under liquidations, liquidation heat map, mode 2. Okay. And then if you look below, though, this is one thing that makes me feel like, man, I don't know, maybe we do kind of aggressively go to that 78,000 for Bitcoin next week or in the next 2 weeks, because you're not seeing a lot of liquidity to the downside, right? And, a lot of longs already got liquidated. So it makes sense that you're not seeing a ton, but you're seeing some levels here that are you do see a little bit of liquidity kind of in these pockets of 66 to about like $66,000 to $65,000 in that next one, and then the next range will be about 64 to 62. But nothing that's really highly concentrated. And price does tend to seem to kind of navigate and act like a magnet towards these highly concentrated liquidation levels here. All right, fear and greed sitting at 5 right here, right? So people are in extreme fear at the moment. No shocker. And whenever that happens, people don't tend to want to buy things, right? But of course, with everything pulling back, this makes sense. People are just really, really fearful. And, the saying, when everybody's fearful, that's the best time for you to buy. I kind of hate that saying, because unless you're deep into, I feel like, the technicals, and you have something that like has given me strong conviction, like the moving average indicator, right? These 3, I feel like this has been really guiding me a ton recently, right? Then of course they're going to be fearful, right? Because they don't have the information or data to give them confidence, and they feel like everything is just volatile, which it is. But if you can kind of zoom out a little bit and say, okay, well, I know this is going to go here because it's done it every single cycle. It's done it every single time, right? And there were some metrics that we use for alt season that didn't play out, but with Bitcoin, it's been consistent, right? Then you'll have confidence and you'll feel better about when prices come down, because that's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm at a point where I'm trying to determine, and by the way, for the members of the channel on YouTube, and for all the other platforms, you can become a member on the OnChain Revolution YouTube channel. I'm going to be making a members only video this Sunday, kind of starting to put together this portfolio of great projects that I personally believe in that are on discount, right? Either discount or they're just looking really, really strong in this overall pullback. So look out for that video on Sunday. I'm going to drop that Sunday. But yeah, so that's how I view it. I view this as opportunity, but most of the market is viewing this as kind of being really, really fearful, right? But all right. Let's get into a couple of headlines here. So I already talked about that. I don't want to get into the price action just yet. I'm going to do a short-term price action a little bit. But let's talk about China here and them banning crypto. Again, China bans crypto again. They're back at it, right? So it says China's central bank, and this is Wu Blockchain reporting this. You can follow them at Wu Blockchain on X. China's central bank and regulators reiterated a blanket ban on crypto activities, including trading, issuance, mining, and unapproved RMB, which is their native currency, linked stablecoins, and said RWA tokenization is generally prohibited unless explicitly approved under designated financial infrastructure, with enforcement intensified against related financial crimes and offshore operations. So this isn't really anything new, right? I feel like China really comes out once every 4 years, right, and bans crypto. And it seems like that's what they're doing. But they're also really trying to have more control as digital assets continually move forward. And, CBDC is like something that's, I feel like, perfectly set up for China. And I think they have a really strong kind of plan with rolling this out. And, the RWA tokenization part, I think they're more afraid of American RWA and other country RWA tokenized assets being bought up by their citizens and their citizens not putting that money into their country's assets. I mean, I think that's a real big focus of what they've always been about, right? And so no shocker here. And then there's a link, but it goes to the actual Chinese bank, I think, article that got put out here. Then Tether minted another 1 billion USDT on Tron. What does this mean? I think this means that first of all, Tron's going to have more and more TVL. That seems to be their game, right? Is to continually add TVL. They do a lot of DeFi stuff, but also, is this going to be kept on Tron? Is this going to be sent out? We know Tether prints a lot of or mints a lot of USDT, and they start to buy Bitcoin eventually, right? And they usually try to take advantage of Bitcoin in these opportunistic moments, like whenever Bitcoin dumps to 60,000, right? So that looks like a perfect moment. Now, this is being minted directly on Tron. And so we got to kind of see the movement of the stable coins there, right? Again, Tron has had a lot of DeFi activity. That's what they've been known for, but they're not really mainstream. I don't know too many people that utilize Tron personally for their personal DeFi stuff. Most people will do it on, maybe a layer 2 or Ethereum directly. All right. This is some good news as MetaPlanet. They are not changing their strategy, right? And I think a lot of people have been a bit concerned about, MetaPlanet and MicroStrategy, as well as BitMine, as they're getting deeper and deeper into the red, that somebody's going to implode, right? Or become basically liquidated. But this is a big statement from MetaPlanet. They said no change to MetaPlanet's strategy. We will continue to accumulate Bitcoin. Statement from their CEO. So I'm sure that their purchases are going to be smaller, and MicroStrategy's purchases have been smaller as well. So is BitMine's. And that's one of the things. This is like, if you go back to the 2022 bear market going into 2023, even parts of 2024, before Bitcoin was like really thriving again, the scare tactic from the bears is that, Michael Saylor is going to get liquidated. This is his liquidation price. We're so close to it. But if you actually look deep into it, Michael Saylor doesn't start to get liquidated or margin called until I think like $18,000 Bitcoin, right? So for that to happen, I mean, we got to have some crazy, world-ending events, in my opinion, to get Bitcoin back down below 20,000, right? But there is a writer from Cointelegraph, I believe it's this article here. Let me pull that. I know I had that article here. Here it is, right here. So Michael Saylor getting liquidated, biggest bull catalyst, right? So Syrian Lions believes that this is the bull catalyst. This is what's going to propel Bitcoin into this bull market, right? So her article kind of kicks off here, and it says the Bitcoin market would definitely bottom if Michael Saylor's strategy gets wrecked, says Maxim Balashvik. There you go. Founder of crypto sentiment platform Santiment. The biggest bull catalyst will be the liquidation of Saylor. The bull catalyst is when everything is bad. So bad cannot be even worse, the Switzerland-based crypto entrepreneur says. It will be the final blow, but it's a bull signal. It is the strongest. It's like FTX crashing, he says. When crypto exchange FTX collapsed in November of 2022, Bitcoin dropped to around 15,500 by June. The price had doubled to around 30,000 at that time. FTX's disgraced founder, Sam Bankman-Fried, was seen as the poster boy for crypto. So, I think this would be horrible for Bitcoin and crypto if Michael Saylor got liquidated. First of all, to get down to those prices of 18,000 Bitcoin, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. There would just have to be so much manipulation to drive Bitcoin there. And then once you get there, and if Saylor were to get margin called, then where are we headed to next? $5,000 Bitcoin? I just don't see it. And plus, even if it did propel a bull run, it's not going to propel a bull run to anything great in that near term. You're talking about going from like 16,000 to potentially back to like 30, if 45, something like that, right? So I just think this is such a bad take. But people seem to want to root for these treasury companies, and if you don't consider Strategy a treasury company, then it's basically the first one to kick things off, right? Let me pull this back in. All right, here we go. Yeah, so we definitely don't want that to happen. I feel like that would be a horrible situation. But let's get into Bitcoin's current price action and where we're possibly heading for the rest of today and heading into the weekend. And then we'll hit on some crypto bubbles as well to kind of check on the alt market. But as you can see, Bitcoin is hanging out at this 69,500, 69,600, and things are looking really, really strong on the hour chart, right? We've had about 7 out of 8 green candles, 4 consecutive ones here. The MACD looks really strong here. You can see this fast line as well, starting to kind of curve up a little bit. And then you're also seeing the stochastics hang out above that 80-point mark for the overbought territory, right? But we are in that area to where a lot of shorts have been getting liquidated, right? At that 68.9. So a lot of shorts already gotten liquidated. Are they going to continually grab up into the 71,000? I think that's probably that range where you can kind of look and see, okay, if you're going to try to call a local top, maybe something like this, right? In this area where we can go and liquidate more of that liquidity that's available there and then come back down. But sometimes, a lot of times what you'll see is you'll see market makers not necessarily even go for that because it's less liquidity up there and people are anticipating it a ton. And so they'll just kind of reverse, right? And then go back for liquidity on the downside, or just fake people out to the downside and then get it a little bit later as more liquidity builds up in those areas, right? So that is something to look at. Do we reach that area of liquidation? And do we, do the market makers grab that and then come down, or do they kind of fake it out a little bit and then go grab it? But we got myself in the chat as well. He says, yeah, this has been a powerful recovery in less than 24 hours. Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, there's no denying that. It's definitely a powerful recovery in a very, very short period of time. And the question is how high will it go in the short term? So if it does grab that 71,000, we'll see this continually push out. The MACD will push out. We'll have not a typical Friday. We'll continually soldier through right now and then break above 70K, grab that 71, and then we'll see what happens on Saturday. Typically Saturdays are low volume, low liquidity, thinner liquidity, but with kind of the volatility that's been happening in crypto, sometimes what you'll get is the activity carrying over, right? And it'll be interesting to see if we get that kind of Saturday tomorrow. And then also we'll play into how the weekly close happens on Sunday, and if we get a strong kickoff to next week. And in fact, we do hit that dead cat kind of range of bouncing back 25 to 30% and get to that 75,000 next week and 78,000. But as of for today, it looks pretty good for the next 2 to 4 hours for Bitcoin. Let's check the 4 hour here and get a little bit of a 2 to 4 day forecast as well. The 4 hour, we are just getting kicked off here for the buy pressure for the MACD, right? So momentum is just kicking off here. So this is another reason why I feel like maybe, we just kind of go through the weekend aggressively to the upside, right? Because we're just getting started here. Now, if we do stop at that 71,000 or maybe even like 70,000, we could have kind of like a weaker 4 hour chart, MACD and stochastics, to where it might, just not really show an aggressive, I guess like the data from the indicators, right? So no huge green candles from the MACD. The stochastics doesn't shoot up past like 100 points on the 4 hour, and then we start to kind of go sideways a little bit and see what happens on Sunday. But as of right now, it's just getting started. So if we do have an aggressive push up, we get back to we get to 71,000. Market makers grab that liquidity. We see what happens at that point. We could start to play out more aggressively on this chart as well. So the 4 hour is still TBD in my opinion, right? We need to see how the rest of today plays out, and if there's going to be kind of price action support to give the 4 hour more aggressive data for the indicators here, momentum indicators. And then taking a look at the daily starting to break down a little bit, right? Because we've been in the sell pressure for quite some time, going back to the 20th of January, and it's starting to break down, right? So what we want to see is today be a good day, tomorrow be a decent day. Doesn't have to be great, but decent, and then Sunday, and we can maybe come out of this to start next week. Now, I'm not super optimistic about that, right? Because I don't know if we see that many just bullish days in a row. I just don't know. Maybe it goes choppy a little bit and takes a little bit of an extension to come out of this until next week. That could be a situation as well. All right, let's see. Yeah, so the daily looks like it's starting to break down some for Bitcoin. Now let's check Ethereum, because Ethereum is bouncing hard as well to the upside. All right, ETH on the hour chart, looking pretty good, just like Bitcoin, right? We crossed back over 2,000, and I expect to continually have like this kind of marching to the uptrend, right? We'll see what happens with Ethereum if it has any aggressive push up here. The 4 hour, very similar situation. I mean, the momentum indicators look very, very similar, almost identical to what Bitcoin was showing here. And then we go to the daily as well. And the daily is same thing, breaking down, right? So let's hop into the crypto bubbles, because I feel like this is probably more interesting at this moment to see how alts are responding to the current, rebound that's happening overall. And it's, by the way, it's not just Bitcoin. I went over the market pulse earlier. It's everything, but Bitcoin and crypto seems to be leading the way, I would say, in terms of the percentage gains. And you can see here in the top 100 for the crypto bubbles, everything is green. There's about maybe 10% or less that's red. You got XDC leading the way here, up 18.8%. And then you got, let me reshow that. Flare. If you guys remember, Flare was a project that was kind of connected to XRP a long time ago. There was an airdrop actually given for XRP holders. That was a long time ago. But it's up 13.8%. HBAR bouncing up strong, up 15.4%. XRP up 16.5%. I mean, these are really strong bounce backs, right? You got Morpho bouncing back up 9.2%. Zcash up 10.5%. Hyperliquid only up 5%, but you got to remember it didn't pull back very much, right? So 5%, while it was only pulling back 2%, while the rest of the blue chip group of tokens on average were pulling back yesterday about 22%. This is a good pull up for Hyperliquid. I mean, you're seeing it at $33, pulling up 5% here. So Hyperliquid continually looking strong. You see Stacks up 5.4%, Doge up 5.7%. Aster bouncing back here 9.7% as well, and then Ondo up 8.4%. Some of the stuff that pulled back though, you got the Trump meme coin pulling back 5.7%, MakerDAO pulling back 4.7%, Stable pulling back 17.2%. So this is the biggest loser in the top 100 right now. And Will5 pulling back 5.4%, probably because they were in the news and had a negative headline yesterday, right? So let's take a look at the top 200. Top 200 is looking mostly green here. You got CBCN up about 31%. You got Lombard up about 15%. Pippin up 22%. The B meme coin up only 24% here. XCN up 13.3%. And ZK up 13.4%. White Whale being one of the newer memes, it is popped up 14.5% here. And you got Jasmy up 12%. So between 100 and 200, we are looking at About 90% of the group there in green, maybe 95 actually. And, only the stuff that pulled back, XPL, I would say, is probably the most significant one that I see, pulled back about 3.2%. And that is the Plasma token that is backed by Tether, right? The Plasma chain. So overall, market's looking good, strong bounce back overall. All right, let's see what else we got. We're going to hop back into the news here. No, already hit that. All right, so VC activity here. So this is something that could be kind of good for the overall space, right? Because we're seeing venture capitalists put more money into the space, but they're just being very picky about it, right? So it says 2025 VC activity nearly doubled what 2024's was, but fewer deals. Both sides got pickier. It says in 2021, venture capital could differentiate by offering introductions and advisory. Now founders ask, what happens after you wire the money? They want partners who can help with distribution, listing strategy, and go-to-market execution. Strategic financing is up 160% year over year, pointing to deeper, more hands-on investor-founder relationships. So, this is actually really, really good, because this also means that like builders in Web3 in the digital asset space are becoming better. They want to succeed, and they're not here just for like overnight money, their token jumping up and then, hey, well, we gave it our best type of situation, right? So what this tells me is that they are really looking for guidance, right? So they have the intelligence and the great ideas, and now what they are looking for is guidance from these investors, which I think that goes along, that can go a very long way. And I think that our space really, really needs that, right? Because as you can see from, past cycles, we've had a lot of people that just try to build and then leave just because, the money left or whatever. You want projects and companies that are going to be around for a long, long time, right? And you can see right here that the amount of funding by stage, just how much it's increased, right? A ton in 2025 compared to 2024. We're in the beginning of this year. So it's going to be interesting to see, if this pulls back a ton this year, as 2026 has kind of started off slow, and what that looks like. But I think it continues. Because I think there's a lot of institutions that are looking to, make money off of these companies, right? That's always been their strategy, whether it's been Silicon Valley, and you had more of the risky VCs come into our space, and they did well in 2020 and 2021. But now, things have changed, but I think it's going to change more towards the way that the investing groups have been with Silicon Valley. And then you can see that here. All right. All right. This is not great news, but we got to hit on it. It says, large Bitcoin holders' share of supply hits 9-month low amid price drop, right? Sentiment says the pattern of large holders selling while retail scoops up Bitcoin is what historically creates bear cycles, right? So large Bitcoin holders are now controlling the smallest share of the cryptocurrency supply since late May, when it first reclaimed 100,000 after more than 3 months, according to crypto sentiment platform Sentiment. So another kind of, data point here that supports that I think we're going to continually go, at least hang around this 200 MA area, right? So this is just a sign that is showing we are in the bear market, and we probably have a little bit ways more to go. That doesn't mean that Bitcoin doesn't jump up and crypto doesn't jump up. It jumps up, from time to time, but you got to look at what the opportunities are. And I think there's going to be more and more of these, blue chip tokens that are going to be cheaper, and more opportunities for you to build a strong portfolio. Because for me, I'm looking at this as the time is now to do that. All right. So basically, this is just more data. Wallets, we already hit on this yesterday, or I think 2 days ago. So the wallets that are increasing, with the larger sizes, they are going down. And there are some smaller amounts, like, $750 to $1,000 wallets activity going up, but it's definitely being outweighed by the whales. That is for sure. All right, let's hit on some of the individual tokens here and see how they are responding to today. So we get into the top 100 here, and or top 20 we'll start with, right? So obviously Bitcoin, Ethereum, we know how that's doing. And you're seeing, let's go to Solana. So Solana sitting at $86 in the last hour, the last 24 hours. So the last 24 hours, it's up 3%. So decent little bounce back here. I'm really watching tokens like Solana, BNB to see, is there opportunity for these to go lower, to be cheaper, and for me to start adding, right? And I think there is. I think there's going to be opportunity. So for me, I'm going to be more patient. But you are seeing bounce backs by these blue chips. BNB's up 1.18%. Solana's up 4% here. Tron not really moving much, even after the news of Tether putting stablecoin on there, and I didn't expect it to really move it too much, honestly. Doge, you're seeing up 3% though. That's a decent little bounce back up to the upside. Bitcoin Cash not moving. Cardano up about 2%, so that's pretty good. Hyperliquid, we talked about that earlier, sitting at $33. Hyperliquid is one that I am definitely gonna continually add to my portfolio. I'm just very, very bullish on all of their movements. Them partnering with institutions, but also creating smart contracts that hold liquidity for like prediction market style type of bets. That's definitely innovation that they are bringing to the table. Canton up 0.84%. Another one that is more driven towards institutions though. But whenever everything pulled back, it definitely didn't pull back too much. And then you see Chainlink. Chainlink is one I'm looking at. It's up 2% on the day. Monero's up about 3% here. Privacy is an interesting one for me, because I feel like if there's a situation, right, where governments really start to push hard against privacy, that's where these tokens can be super risky, right? And I could see a situation to where that happens. The EU is really strong with regulations with digital assets. If you look at like some of these entities that have success in Europe that are in our space, they comply completely, and they're like 2 steps ahead of compliance in the EU. They already know what they're expecting. And so I could see the EU being really anti-privacy. And we'll see how other governments really start to kind of form their opinion on it. As of right now, the United States seem like they're okay with it. And I think that's why this sector is thriving. But, I don't think JP Morgan's going to be really using Monero, or we know that they use Canton though. So that's the interesting part, right? Are they going to use something that they build? Or are they going to use something that the public uses as well? Canton, anybody can really use that, right? But Monero, everybody uses it. It's been around, or like it's available. But you can't argue. If you're an institution, how are you going to argue against privacy if you're using it as well? That's the point. So I feel like privacy is kind of tricky right now, but it's hot. It's been a hot meta. So I am paying attention to Monero and Zcash as well. What else do we have in here? Litecoin's up 2%. Man, I remember getting into Litecoin back in 2017. And I thought, Litecoin was going to be the next huge thing, right? Everybody was talking about it. It was a fork of Bitcoin, but it was quicker, it was faster, all these things. But you are seeing it pull up 2% here. I do think Litecoin and some of these older coins, they just move with the market now, right? Unless they come out with some sort of innovation, upgrade the chain or anything like that to make it super exciting, I just can't see them like going on this like crazy tear, right? So if the overall market does go nuts, then they'll probably enjoy some of that mutual benefit, right? And then you go down to Zcash is up about almost 4%, and at 3.7%. HBAR 3.8%. We got some more comments in the chat here. We got myself says the ETH chart looks just like the others. Yeah, I mean, it pretty much is the leader of the others, wouldn't you say? I feel like it is for sure. And then Stan says the Sol price is amazing. Why would Sol drop so steeply? Yeah, I mean, Sol is an interesting one because there are some people that are a little bit worried that it might replace Ethereum's role that ETH had in 2024 and in the beginning part of 2025 before it finally caught some motion. So like as we're heading into this next bull market or bull cycle, Solana's weak because now they're looking for the next thing. I don't necessarily agree with that. I feel like Solana's leadership and the activity that happens on Solana is constantly like in your face, and they're very much connected with Gen Z, right? And I think that bodes well for them. Right now, maybe the next cycle afterwards, I could see possibly that, but crypto is going to be completely different at that point. Let me hit this real quick. Got to keep the stream going on TikTok with the puzzle thing there. But yeah, so I think that it's a play. Solana is a play, and I think it's cheap. Monroe Land Excavation says XRP is up 16%. Caspa is up 12%. Look at the biggest gainers. Let's see, where's XRP? Yeah, it is up 17%. That is for sure. XRP is up 17% on the day. Wow, it's definitely big right there. That's a big jump up. XRP, HBAR, Caspa up 11% here. And then you see VeChain, and then it kind of drops down after that. But yeah, I mean, look, XRP's been one that I've said consistently that you have an opportunity to make a lot of money with XRP, in my opinion. Not financial advice, none of it is on the show ever, but because I feel like they've been so like they've created such a cult style community, but not just that. Like Brad Garlinghouse has really good relationships with the financial institutions. So if you are about decentralization and blockchain and the reason why it first started, then you're probably not a fan of XRP. But if you have accepted the fact that like institutions are going to really take over the space, or at least have a really strong impact in the space and be able to just continually push like billions and eventually trillions of dollars into the space, then XRP is going to make people money if they get in at these levels, in my opinion, right? And so that's kind of where I'm at with that. Sam says, when a project like Hyperliquid stays strong while others dip, what does that mean? That means that they a couple things. One, I think that it means they have a holder base that believes in like what they're doing for near term. Two, they have some sort of holder base in that, right? That doesn't mean that these other tokens that have pulled back aggressively, some of them that don't have holder bases with conviction. That's not what I'm saying, but Hyperliquid is newer. They've been doing a lot of stuff. They've been putting a lot of headlines out. And so I think that conviction really resonates with their community. And then two, their founders care about their token price. And I know there's a lot of founders that say they don't care, but if you're putting fee revenue into buying back your token, you care about your token price, right? And so that's what it tells me. And I hopefully that helps you, Stan. But I mean, those are that gives confidence, I would think, and that's what makes me bullish about Hyperliquid. The Ackman 135 says, do you think BIP 110 will fork and ruin? No, I don't think ordinals will be ruined. I think ordinals will be fine. There's a lot of people building things for ordinals. You have people on ICP that ICP has their own Bitcoin node, by the way, for the people that didn't know. But you have people or teams on ICP that have built a decentralized ordinals indexer, right? So even if Casey stopped maintaining his ordinals indexer, it will live on forever because of the ordinal indexer that the Omnity team has built. So I think ordinals will be fine. And there's a little bit of controversy with Bitcoin and Bitcoin Core and stuff that's happening right now. And actually, I don't know if it was good timing, but one of the Bitcoin Core maintainers resigned recently, and we'll hit on that before we end the show there. And then Stan says Sol was hit hard, but the Seeker token blew up while others were hit. Yeah, I mean, the Seeker is going to be interesting, right? I think if they can get that phone really strong mainstream, then we could have something with that. But first, crypto needs to get mainstream and kind of not have this situation to where its reputation gets kind of tarnished every other year. I feel like, almost, in a sense, right? So we need to do better. But I think things are going to be better. You are seeing better builders come into the space. You're seeing more focus on crypto as a whole from governments and things like that. So as that continues on and infrastructure continues on and people start to utilize crypto without even really knowing it, I think that's whenever we get into those places. But all right, let's hit on this Bitcoin. Oh, here it is. It says the Bitcoin Core maintainer Gloria Zhao has stepped down and revoked her signing key, a routine move that does not affect Bitcoin's consensus or security. So, there's people that are saying that this move is routine. It's not a big deal. You can even see in the comments here, routine cleanup, maintainer stepping down is routine, massive nothing burger, consensus untouched. But I mean, it is kind of weird that she's doing it while all this kind of controversy is happening with Bitcoin Core and the Epstein files and all this stuff. But I do think this is going to be more of a nothing burger. You're just going to replace her position. And but like the whole situation about ordinals, I don't think that it goes away. In fact, people are saying on the timeline, that the Bitcoin ecosystem has been quiet and all that stuff. But I think people don't realize that people have been building still, though. It's quiet, but people are building. Like, I was in a Spaces I co-hosted yesterday, and the BRC20 phase 2 is live. So Ordi, people are building stuff right now with Ordi. I've seen a ordinals launch to where you can pay with Ordi. And the way that BRC20 works now is it utilizes Bitcoin layer 1 still, but it also utilizes an EVM in a synchronizer, I believe, as well, right? So what is up, Justin? Justin says, GM, exciting times. And then we got, so basically what I'm saying about the maintainer, I don't think it's a big deal. I think, there's a lot of like news and headlines that people are freaking out about. And I get it. Right now is not an easy time to go through, right? And that's why I always say, if you're getting stressed out by the volatility, all that stuff, go hit some golf balls if you play golf. Go shoot some hoops if you are a basketball player. Work out if you're, a gym rat. Stuff like that. And then the Super Bowl is this weekend, right? So you can take your mind off of it that way. Monroe says, maybe I missed it, but is this a dead cat bounce with BTC and the broader crypto market with more pain to come, or are we seeing a reversal? What's your take? Yeah. So I can break it down kind of quickly for you again here, but let me share my screen. But if you look here at the weekly chart for Bitcoin, okay, I've been using the moving averages to really determine where we are and where we're going. And if you pay attention to that, it will tell you everything you need to know. I mean, you go back to the 2013 bull run here, right? And, once you recapture the 50, the 100, and the 200, you don't go back below it until you hit the bull run. And then you start your bear market, right? And it was right here, right? And then you lost the 50, the 100, the 200, right? And so what I was explaining was we're in this situation right here. This is 2015, but this is where we are right now for Monroe that was asking that question. This almost to a T, like this candle, right? So this is a 200 moving average. So this candle that followed the following week, this was 1000% a dead cat bounce. You see it right here. Bitcoin went from 281 to 163. Then it bounced from 163 to 291, dead cat bounce. Then you almost revisited all the way back to the following week. So 2 weeks later, after that first red candle, you're almost back to the 200 moving average. And you're kind of doing this, hanging around here until you decide to come up. And then this is another, in my opinion, a fake out that happened here. But this was back in 2015, so not a bunch of people were listening in, right? And so then, but my point is you kind of rode the 200 MA until you recaptured, you see this? You recaptured the 50-day moving average. So this is the first step. You got to recapture this 50-day moving average. Then you move up and you recapture the 100-day. Then you don't go back under until you get to another bull market, right? Then you say, okay, I'm done with that. I'm ready for the bear market again. What happened? You lose the 50, you lose the 100, and then bam, this is where we are again for Monroe there. So I know I wanted to break this down because I'm not sure if you've been watching, because it does really tell you where we're going, the moving averages on the weekly chart. At least for me, it's given me so much conviction on like the direction we're heading. And so anyhow, same thing. We touched the 200 MA, dead cat bounce next week right here in 2018. Then we work our way back to where? Guess? Can you guys guess? 200 moving average. Whoa! Surprise, surprise. We worked our way down again. We ride it until when we recapture that 50, we recapture the 100, and then we're above it. Now, this was an anomaly situation because COVID happened. So I actually don't count this situation because COVID is a pandemic that happens once every 100 years. And so it did bring us back below, but it was a very quick crash right here, right? So then COVID happened, then we're back above it, and we have our bull market, and then we go back into the bear market. And this is the last example. I know this has kind of been drawn out a little bit here, but I do want people to kind of learn where I'm coming from, right? So then you see this breakdown here, and then now we go back into this bull market. It recaptured the 50, the 100, and so our bull market this past 2025. You can say late 2024, 2025. It didn't feel like a bull market because there was no euphoria, right? It was basically Bitcoin benefiting and having its own solo bull market. But now we came out of it. We start the bear market. Bam, lose the 50, lose the 100, and then we touch the 200. So my conclusion, Dan Wong says, fake pump. I agree with you. I believe it's a fake pump. He says, what's your conclusion? My conclusion is that we are experiencing a dead cat bounce. But, it doesn't mean that we don't get to 78,000 next week. Because if you look at dead cat bounces and you look at kind of the average recovery of those quick bounces, which, by the way, they can last for 5-7 days, a week, and sometimes a month in rare cases. But 30% is like that top of a dead cat recovery, typically on average. That would bring us to 78,000. And so if this is going to be a part of that, and we don't have anything in the middle that's kind of like, okay, choppy, and we just kind of finish this dead cat bounce for this next week, then we go back to 70, possibly low 70,000, 75, maybe best case scenario, 78. But I very strongly believe we revisit this 200 moving average again. And then we go sideways until we decide we want to recapture the 50. Now, to recapture the 50, you got to get to about 86,000, 88,000, right? So we go sideways, range between 75 to like 65,000 for the next 6 weeks, something like that, right? 6 to 8 weeks. And then we start to get a little bit more aggressive and we say, okay, it's time. Maybe we're in like, I don't know how long, maybe like 3 months or something. And we capture that 50-day EMA or moving average, sorry. And then we start to work our way to Q4 which, some people think that's whenever we get bullish. So that's kind of the scenario I'm playing out. So hopefully that helped you guys. What's my alt prediction? Yeah, I mean, so there's been an argument that alts kind of might do their own thing in March, early March, and they're talking about like the ISM going up and the manufacturing PMI, right, going up, and it does, like, usually when that does go up, it does align, and Bitcoin aligns with it too. So Bitcoin and then the PMI goes up. I think we hit the highest in forever, like after January's data came out. I think we hit 52.4. The last time we hit 50% or 50 points for the PMI was January of 2025, right? But we all know how that ended up playing out. Not great, right? So that's what's kind of making me feel like, the PMI, you definitely need a continuation. Like, whenever it did align with Bitcoin and alts, PMI got to like 60 points or higher, right? So 52.4 doesn't do too much for me, although it is on the way up. But let's say that it does get to 60, and then like we have some sort of crazy like energy with risk on assets. That time period would be starting probably around the beginning of March, but I'm not confident in that personally. That's my personal opinion. But that's just how I feel on it. Sheedy, what is up? Mr. Sheedy says shortest and sharpest bear market ever. Yeah, I agree. I do think it could be short, man. It could be short. I don't know if it's going to be the shortest. And also we got to kind of see how the sentiment plays out, but we are back above 70,000 right now, 70,200. So that is definitely looking better. So, like I mentioned earlier, we could have one of those Fridays that's not your typical Friday, to where Bitcoin's trading more aggressively throughout. We're not just getting the first half, and we finish with a strong ending to the day. But I think more than that would be like, how does it play out for tomorrow, right? Which would be, Saturdays, you guys all know, if anybody trades in here, Saturdays are thin liquidity, scalping type of days. Now, there are situations whenever stuff is going on in the world that can set Bitcoin on fire or pump it up. Like, I remember, you guys probably remember when Trump used to tweet all the time back in the day, and it would affect Bitcoin's price because he would say something about Bitcoin. I'm pretty sure Eric Trump or somebody was like nudging him, hurry up and do it, man, do it. And he would pump Bitcoin a ton. Those were actually horrible situations because then it would like immediately reverse like the next day or two. But yeah, so we'll see what kind of day Saturday gives us as well. Van says, lowest price it can reach. Bitcoin? Yeah, so I think Bitcoin could, if we play out a scenario that matches what happened last bear market after Bitcoin broke down below the 200 moving average, it actually, for the first time in 3 cycles, or the 2 previous cycles, right? So 2017 or 2018 bear market and 2014-15 bear market. For the first time after it touched or barely broke down below the 200 moving average, it actually continued. So, and the reason why I personally believe it broke down 33% further down is because you got to think about COVID. Every asset class was overinflated because it was overbought. Just everybody had money, whether you were getting PPP loans, whether you're getting stimulus, you took money out of your house, whatever it was, people were buying assets trying to get rich. You guys remember that. So we had a double top. There was so much liquidity. We had a high in April and a high in November, but that was very comparable, by the way. That's not normal for in a bull market year. Yeah, you do get some kind of energy happening in the spring of that bull market year for Bitcoin and some of the alts just to kind of get revved up a little bit, but nothing like what happened in 2021. So overbought, in my opinion, a lot of liquidity, every asset class, crypto was no different. And I think that's why we had just such a brutal bear market, which extended this out. So if you were to extend this past the 200 SMA, past 60,000, I don't think, even if it did actually finish multiple candles below this, I don't think we get anywhere near 33% below it, by the way. But I did the math and it's like $38,000, right? So I think more realistically, we could see something like a 10% below or something like that. Maybe like something like 10% maybe. So maybe more on the line, along the lines of something like 50K. Stan says, is the CZ catalyst fact or fiction for Bitcoin? Thanks. Yeah, I mean, I think it is fiction until you can't withdraw your money, which, by the way, I did see some reports yesterday that Binance had announced withdrawal limitations or something like that, but I didn't see anything today, so it must have been either very temporarily or FUD that was put out there. But yeah, so so the CZ thing, I think it's I mean, look, so they got the CZ situation. So you said, is it a catalyst? Catalyst is really, it's that would push it to the upside. I think you're talking about Black Swan. I'm not honestly taking it that serious, because I feel like that'll be probably too late then, but until people are legitimately saying that they can't withdraw, then I think I'll take that. We just need more facts about stuff like that kind of stuff. People are fighting him really, really hard on crypto Twitter though. The Ackman 135 says, best in slot, they should adopt Fractal Bitcoin and be both Fractal and best in slot's official token, and Binance should list the token. And all the other exchanges are supporting it. Binance supports merge mining. Yeah, I know. They merge mining is, a lot of people are attributing merge mining to the fact that Fractal Bitcoin's price stability has been like, not great. But I think it's more about the overall market, first of all, hasn't been great. The Bitcoin ecosystem just kind of pulled back in general as a whole with liquidity. And it shifted over to Solana. We all know that, happened in 2024, right? And so I need to look more into their tokenomics and how much the miners are earning per block that they're mining. But merge mining is a cool thing if you're trying to earn more in that type of stuff. Best in Slots really focused on, I was in a space with Johan, which works for the Best in Slot team, and he was saying that their focus is really on Bitcoin layer 1 and scaling that, right? And so they use these EVM smart contracts, and then their synchronizer as well. And programmability, one thing, so teams are focusing on ORDI as well. So that's one thing I'll say about the Best in Slot and BRC20. If the Chinese community, if the East, which they were huge on ORDI, if they really come into that economy or that ecosystem, man, BRC20 could really do some damage, I feel like, especially ORDI. The ORDI is the anchor, the strength, and if ORDI can get going, then the rest can. Van Wong says, Fractal is dust now. Well, I haven't heard too much about a Fractal recently, but Shitty says, in my opinion, Fractal has held its ground better than most. I've used it for arbitrage opportunities recently. That's awesome, Shitty. I know you do stuff with the Fractal communities over there, and you're still well connected with the Bitcoin ecosystem communities and Bitmap and all that stuff. So shout out to you. Go follow Mr. Shitty if you guys are on X. He's very knowledgeable. He's been an OG community member of this channel. I appreciate you so much, Mr. Shitty. You're awesome. Any other questions in here? Let me check and see if the Poet Babe from Abstract says, what about Alio? Let me look up Alio. Let's look up Alio. What is Alio? Is that on the Abstract chain, Poet Babe? Because it's really okay. So Alio, let's pull it up here. Alio is sitting at right under 10 cents, right? Sitting right under 10 cents. It looks like possibly all-time high was in September of 2024, and it's been going sideways. Let's check out what Alio is. They are ranked number 267. Let me go to their website real quick. A blockchain built for payment. So 99% of blockchains put your financial life on display. Every payment, business transaction, and payroll detail is permanently broadcasted to the world. Alio is the first blockchain that enables private and compliant payments. Okay. So trying to, it's like a privacy project. Yeah. And you see some big names down here, Google Cloud, A16Z, Coinbase. So they have some backing for sure. I think the biggest thing is with privacy is, will privacy go through, a tough time with regulators and governments, countries' governments? Because as of right now, it doesn't seem to be the case, right? I think we might be okay right now, but does that last into the future? Oh, I appreciate you, Mr. Sheedy. He says lots of love, still best channel out there, man. I appreciate you, sir. We definitely need to, connect at the next Bitcoin conference. And last time in Nashville, that was my bad. We definitely should have planned more for other community members as well. But this time coming up, I definitely will be partaking in the next Bitcoin conference and be hanging out with you guys. Right? It's gonna be fun. She was on Abstract. The Ackman, she was on Abstract. Mr. Sheedy. Mr. Sheedy, his X account. If you just look up Mr. Sheedy, SHIDDY, you can find him. He is very, very knowledgeable in the Bitcoin space, as well as Fractal Bitcoin, by the way. He's heavily in that community as well. All right. I think Vang asked about next cycle all-time. Yeah, so next cycle all-time high. I think we can hold off on that one until maybe I'll do some research on that one for Monday. But for you guys that are listening in right now, I'm going to be dropping a video tonight as well about the Bitcoin ecosystem. Going to hit on the BRC20 phase 2. I'm going to hit on nat.fun and show you guys exactly how to reserve your block from the block runner guys. If you don't know what DMT is, I'm going to break that down very in a simplistic way. But it's really, in my opinion, it's really elegant how they use block data to be able to create assets out of that. And so we'll go into that, and then we'll hit on some runes ecosystem. I'm going to use a new website to kind of hit on these runes market caps. Guys, the Bitcoin ecosystem is here. It's still, building, and I'm going to drop that video tonight. And then this weekend on Sunday, I'm going to be dropping a video for members. It's going to be a members only video. I think it's $10 to join my membership. We're going to go over portfolio that I'm building out. And what's up, 9? Man, I got to dive deeper into your project. We got 9 also is another guy to follow. He knows a ton of stuff about bitmaps and the Bitcoin ecosystem as well. Follow him on X, but he says bitmap don't give a F about the price. I agree, man. I agree. Bitmap is also, that's why I like the DMT stuff, is because those block runner guys, they were, really in the forefront of bitmap. I love bitmap and how it works and all that stuff. He says, keep rocking, champ. I appreciate that, sir. Stan says, Nat, Yeah, Nat. I mean, is it the the secondary reward coin for miners, right? That's another thing, and you don't have to merge mine. You automatically get that with Nat, and I'm going to get into that as well. And Sheedy says, agree. Bitmap price irrelevant. One Bitcoin is one Bitcoin. One bitmap is one bitmap. I agree. But yeah, for the members, I'm going to be putting together a video this Sunday, just talking about the new portfolio I'm creating as these prices are pretty cheap, right? I do believe that we revisit that 200 moving average. So I think that, there's no problem buying stuff that is cheap, and then later you can get it cheaper. But if you're just like, I want to wait 100% until like it's dirt cheap, you might be waiting forever for the rest of your life, right? So, but anyhow, I appreciate you guys hanging out with me on a Friday. Remember, it's the weekend. Go do something that makes you happy, right? It can be really stressful with all this volatility. Shut the charts down or whatever, but you can always come back. You can always watch one of my videos another day or something like that. But Super Bowl weekend is happening this weekend. So for the people in the US, go enjoy that. And then if you're not from the US, go enjoy something else, another soccer match or something like that. But I appreciate you guys hanging with me on this Friday and really just, shooting the with me, hanging out and that type of stuff. But without you guys, I definitely couldn't do the show. And without my partners, I couldn't do it. So if you could check them out, it does help me. I do this full time. So it definitely helps me out. And if you check out merlinchain.io, you can go to their website and then go to stake. If you're interested in staking, you have three options. You can stake Bitcoin to earn more Bitcoin. They pay you out in Bitcoin. And they try to shoot for a APR between 8 and 21%. And then you can stake the Merlin Chain token if you don't want to do Bitcoin. There's two options with the Merlin Chain token. There's a flexible day-to-day. You can claim your rewards every single day. You earn 15% APR. And then you have the bonded staking with Merlin Chain token, which is a 6-month lockup and 45% APR. You can go to merlinchain.io, learn about their ecosystem and what they are doing. They got listed on Coinbase Perps and also Kraken Spot and Perps last Q4. Right, so they are definitely making moves. And then also, if you have an extra moment, check out satsman.fun, which is the premier runes meme coin launchpad for Bitcoin Layer 1, utilizing ICP's tech stack to make it a fast kind of Solana experience. You go launch your coin. First thing you do is you etch it. Then you launch it for mint. And once it mints out, they will take over the liquidity to RichSwap, which is their AMM. Uses Bitcoin Layer 1 and ICP's tech stack as well. And you can trade tokens here. You can just go to the pools and all that great stuff. And also, if you wouldn't mind heading over to onchainrevolution.io, it is the website for the brand. If you head over there, I do try to put up a daily market blog there. And if you're interested in getting a VPN for privacy, I do have a link that you can use. For that, you get a massive discount. I think it's like 74% off. And then a ledger as well. You can get a discount if you were looking for that. But it looks like my website is down, or at least the internet is slow to connect with it. But all right, guys, appreciate you. I'll finish out with some of these last comments here. Stan says, happy Friday. Thanks. 9, lately weekend is not my core time. Thanks, Sheedy. Only so many times in the day. And then we finish it out with a couple more comments from those two guys. But I love those guys. I love all you guys. Have a blessed weekend. And until Monday, peace.